Hey there. So you're trying to get a handle on market structures, right? Maybe you've got an exam coming up, or you just want to understand how the economy really ticks. Well, you've come to the right place. Today, we're going to break down the core concepts and connect them to something truly fascinating, the Indian knowledge system. Let's jump right in.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're starting with the two big extremes you see in every textbook. Then we'll get down to earth and look at how economics works in real communities. After that, we'll explore the philosophy of the Indian knowledge system. And finally, this is the really cool part, we'll see how all that ancient wisdom is actually shaping modern business.
All right, first up, let's talk about the textbook models. To really get market structures, you have to start with the two polar opposites, perfect competition on one side and monopoly on the other. Think of these as the building blocks for understanding pretty much every market out there.
So, perfect competition. What is that? Imagine a gigantic farmer's market where everyone is selling, say, the exact same kind of potato. There are tons of sellers, and no one's potatoes are special. So what happens if one farmer tries to jack up their price? You just walk to the next stall, right? Exactly. That means each farmer is a price taker. They have zero control. They just have to accept the going rate. Now, for this perfect market to exist, you need a few key ingredients. And for your exams, you'll definitely want to remember these. First, you need a huge number of sellers. Second, the product has to be totally identical or homogeneous. Third, anyone can jump in and start selling or pack up and leave with no barriers. And finally, everyone, buyers and sellers, knows everything about the prices and the product. It's a very specific and pretty rare setup. Now, let's flip the script and go to the complete opposite end, the monopoly. Here, you've got just one seller calling all the shots. Think about your local water company or a company that holds a patent for a life-saving drug. There are no other options, right? No close substitutes. This means they're not taking the price, they're making the price. They are the price maker. Okay, pay attention because this slide is pure gold, especially if you're studying for a test. It lays out the differences so clearly. Perfect competition has tons of sellers. A monopoly has just one. The product is identical versus totally unique. One has zero control over price, the other has a ton. And the big one, barriers to entry. In perfect competition, there are none. In a monopoly, the barriers are sky high. Think patents, government regulations, or just massive costs. So we've got the theory down, but let's be honest, economics didn't start in a textbook. Let's rewind and look at how communities actually handled trade and business for centuries, long before we had these fancy models. It all began with the simplest idea imaginable, the barter system. This is trade in its purest form. I've got a basket of apples, you've got a new pair of shoes. If we both want what the other has, we just swap. No money, no credit cards, just a simple exchange of goods for goods. But you can probably see the problems, right? Bartering is tricky. First, you have to find someone who not only has what you want, but also wants exactly what you have. Economists call this the double coincidence of wants, and it's a huge pain. Then, how do you even agree on value? Is one cow worth 50 chickens or 100? And you can't exactly cut a live cow in half for a smaller trade. These problems are exactly why humanity invented money. Now, here's another brilliant community idea: cooperative farming. Think about it. A single small farmer might struggle, but what if all the small farmers in a village pool their land, their tools, and their labor? Suddenly, they can afford better equipment. They have more power when selling their crops, and everyone shares in the success. It's basically strength in numbers applied to agriculture. And of course, we have community markets. Whether it's a traditional village hut or a modern farmer's market, the idea is genius. They cut out the middleman. The person who grew the tomatoes sells them directly to you. That means the farmer gets more money, you probably pay less, and you get to know the people who produce your food. It's not just a place to shop, it's the heart of the community. Okay, so these community practices, bartering, cooperatives, local markets, they aren't just random historical facts. They're actually built on a very deep and holistic worldview. And that's our bridge to understanding the Indian knowledge system, or IKS. This is the philosophical DNA behind it all. This quote really nails it. IKS isn't a narrow subject. It's this vast, all-encompassing system. It doesn't put economics in one box and ethics or spirituality in another. It sees them as completely intertwined, all part of one big picture of how to live a good life. And I mean, just look at the scope here.
It covers everything from deep philosophy to holistic medicine like Ayurveda. And right there, you see polity and economics. This isn't a new addition, it's always been a core part. A classic example is the Arthashastra by Chanakya, an ancient, incredibly detailed guide to economic policy and governance. So now for the big payoff. This ancient system isn't just something for the history books. In our final section, we're going to see how these exact principles are being used right now to build some of the most innovative and successful businesses today. This is where the past transforms the present. Okay, get ready for an aha moment. You know those concepts from your microeconomics class? Well, check this out. The IKS idea of aparigraha, which is about not being greedy and limiting your wants, sounds a lot like diminishing marginal utility, right? The ancient Shreni guilds, that's an early form of firm organization, and the focus on dharma, or ethics and trade, is the very soul of what we now call welfare economics. The parallels are just incredible. So, does this stuff actually work in the real world? Let's talk about Amul. The Amul Dairy Cooperative is probably one of the best examples on the planet of a business that took these traditional indigenous values and blended them with modern strategies to create something truly special. So what's Amul's secret? It's that blend. They didn't just build a factory. They organized millions of rural milk producers into community cooperatives. That's the traditional part. They valued their age-old knowledge of animal care, but then they plugged that powerful community base into a hyper-efficient, modern supply chain with cutting-edge technology. It's the best of both worlds. And the results? Just look at that number, 3.6 million. That isn't just a number on a slide. That represents 3.6 million producers, mostly small farmers, who have a stable income and a stake in their own success. It's a massive, real-world example of how this kind of thinking can lift up an entire community. So that brings us to a really big question, doesn't it? As we face all these modern challenges, inequality, sustainability, you name it, we're all looking for new answers. But maybe, just maybe, the most powerful ideas for our future aren't new at all. Maybe they're hidden in our past, just waiting for us to listen. Something to think about.